video, which is about this position. Yeah, we already looked at g6 and knight f6 and d5 in earlier videos, and here we're going to check out the rest of the possibilities for black. A lot of them will be transpositional and will be dealt with in other videos. We only look at some pretty rare lines that a black might play that don't transpose. So what is there? Usually the independent lines start with knight to f6. So let's start with this. Bishop g2 and then e6. Of course, black can also try knight to c6. Just put both knights out, and I suggest just to play knight c3. This will often transpose now. If black plays g6 or d6, then a3, bishop g7, rook b1 is going to transpose to the c4, c5, g3, g6 video. Black can also play with e6. This is something that we will look at later via knight f6, e6. Yeah, important is not to play e4, but we look at this later. E6, yeah, as mentioned, this is the starting point of some independent lines. An important moment is right here, very important. White absolutely should avoid the move knight c3. It looks totally normal, but it is not a particularly good move. The problem is that black is playing d5. And he's very much threatening, intending to play d5 to d4, kicking our knight. And this is not a very nice prospect. We simply don't get in d4 here. Yeah, we would like to play some sort of d4 ourselves, but if you look at things like that, this is not very desirable, moving the queen early on. And something like this, we really don't want to see her hopping around with the knight, giving black a space advantage. So knight c3 is a perfectly normal looking move. This is actually not good. You have to play knight to f3 here. A move order that we have to check, and I was about to start about this when I got kind of confused, is this. Important thing is, after e6 here, white again should play the move knight to f3. The move e4 also looks interesting, but black has, fascinatingly enough, the idea d5. And this is good for black, quite funny. A line like this, for example, I definitely don't want to see happening in my games. It's not a big deal. Just play knight f3 instead, after which we will transpose to something that we'll see later in the game. Very often a d5 transposes to a Tarrasch. Okay, so e6, we have established that knight f3 is our move of choice. What can black play here? The move I'm going to look at mostly is the move knight to c6. But of course there are other moves. If he plays d5 immediately, I think we should just capture, and after e takes, play d4, which is the Tarrasch defense of the Queen's Gambit declined. Or knight f6, which after d4 again is a Queen's Gambit declined type of position. I'm going to be like that later, of the semi-Tarrasch. We will look at this with a separate video in the c4 e6 section. Something that is not transposing is the move b6. This move is actually pretty bad. I have tried to play it myself once. I managed to play it, but it was a one-time thing. I simply didn't appreciate that white has the move knight e5. And this is a bit embarrassing. Black has to go d5, and after queen a4, this very direct play already sends black into some kind of trouble. Like knight takes, knight b7, knight c3 here after the capture, and there's lots of pressure on that pawn. A funny little trick is this, knight c4, after which the knight drops back to e3, and white is so much on that pawn that he can not really keep it. b6 is a pretty bad move. I really wonder what I was thinking back then when I tried it. Okay, back to this position. Black can try the move a6 here. This is a move that actually surprised me a bit. I always thought that this is just not a particularly good idea, and I have to say it is not particularly good, but it has one very interesting idea. After the normal move castles, black is actually able to play b5 without being punished. In fact, the best move seems to be b3, after which black is kind of okay. I mean, white can definitely play a position like that, but I don't think he has a particularly impressive advantage. It is in fact, after a6, a lot better to play knight c3 first, and simply to prevent b5. Black usually now plays in hedgehog style. He wants to get a hedgehog type of position. Queen c7 is often going to be played, and a position like that happens. Here I think white is better with two setups, at least two setups. You can just go d4, as you often do in the hedgehog, and get the queen to take on d4, or the move d3 is also something that I like, with a later d4. In a position like that, white is also quite happy. He has very good fianchettoed bishops, and after d6, rook d1, he has set up a little trap that in fact quite a lot of black players fall into, by not taking on d4 now. If black plays a move like this, then knight d5 is a big problem. E takes, c takes, and we get the piece back with a fantastic position. The best is for black to trade on d4, queen takes, and just centralize here. White is a bit better here. The move, pawn on d6 is somewhat weak on that open file, and it's not a particularly attractive hedgehog. More space, good bishops, it's what we want from an opening result. What else is there? Bishop e7 is quite often played, and this is almost invariably going to transpose to what we will see in the main line of the survey. I suggest castling, and d4. And again, d5 is the Tarrasch. It's on every move. Yeah? Black can always play c5, d5, e6. There's nothing that we can do to prevent it, and we don't need to. I'm just saying the Tarrasch defense of the Queen's Gambit is something that you need to play against anyway. No matter if you play 1c4 or d4 or knight f3, the setup is possible no matter what. So let's go back to the actual main continuation of the survey, which is the move knight to c6. Here it's important to start with castling. You can go d4, but there is little need. In fact, something like queen b6 leads to complications that we probably don't want to study. Yeah, like knight b5, knight e5, this is attacked. It's totally unnecessary to allow any counterplay. Just castles on move 5 is stronger. Yeah, now black, in fact this is the most popular move, quite often plays d5, and again it's a Tarrasch or semi-Tarrasch after this. If black is faced with d4, a lot of the time he will take, because he wants some kind of Sicilian or hedgehog type of position. The bad news for black is that this is not a particularly good version of this setup. Like takes, now castles. On d5, knight c3, we will get a very nice anti-IQP position that could easily also happen from the Tarrasch defense when black has played something imprecise. Good moves are b3 now or bishop e3, both developing and intensifying control over the central squares. Most of the time, however, black castles, after which we develop the knight with knight c3. Yeah, d5 is possible, but we know that already. I like this and this. White is a bit better. So most of the time they go a6 to cover the b5 square. If black tries queen b6, we can go here. And something like this or bishop e3 is very annoying. a6, bishop e3, queen a5, knight d6, for example, is just better for white. So a6, this is the most frequently played move once this position is reached. In fact, I'm surprised that it is reached at all on some reasonably high level, because this position is borderline playable for black, I think, if white plays the right move. With a move like b3, white is definitely going to be okay, but knowing the strongest move here might net you some nice, quick, convincing wins. Best move is bishop to f4. Yeah, this is just preventing the queen going there. And what is black's move? Knight takes d4 is, I think, the best move now. Stuff like queen b6 can lead to a very nice kind of game for white. Yeah, if you imagine rook d8 trying to play d6, white has got c5. Yeah, and black cannot take because this picks up the bishop. And then black has to go here, and after bishop c7, rook e8, knight a4, this is a position that well, I don't know how to describe. It's kind of unbelievably bad, yeah, for black. So he has to be really, really careful with stuff like that. Sometimes black tries rook e8, but white is better here as well. Just go rook c1 and ask black about his next move. He will be very hard pressed to play something that makes any sense. The relatively best, as mentioned, is a capture on d4. Here white is just going to recapture, of course, and after d6 we have to make sure that e5 is not winning a bishop. That's easy, we just go back, and I think we can be very happy with this position. We have rook d1 coming up next, and d6 is very weak. He has to give more support to that. Queen c7 and a rook c1. Yeah, black can never take here. Yeah? Oops. So rook d8 is played here most of the time. Interesting is that something like bishop d7 can be answered very nicely with the move c5, and this is spelling trouble. This is not possible due to the pin, and queen takes c5. White again has this discovered attack. So rook d8 is our main move to look at, and now I just recommend rook c1 and white's position, rook fd1, I'm sorry, and white's position is absolutely excellent. It's very difficult to give black some advice here. The move c5 is still in the mix. For example, after bishop d7, again c5 is going to be quite annoying. You can also take d6, by the way. That's kind of unnecessary. Yeah, you see how difficult it is for black to make a move. Actually, after rook fd1, my file ends here because I think it's just so bad that it doesn't need any further analysis. Yeah, if someone happens to play this, just be happy about it and play with this strong bishops and nicely centralized pieces. So this chapter here, this part of the video series, is lots of transposition into the Tarrasch. In fact, quite often this is black's best option. The standalone lines like these here are usually just better for white. Remember this bishop f4 move. This is something that is not very typical. Often white would play b3 here to develop the bishop, but it is very strong in this position as black doesn't have queen c7, and he has a hard time to get any playable setup here at all. As we have seen, queen b6 is bad, and I don't really see what black should do. So yeah, lots of transpositions here, but I think we can be happy with the independent options. They are all good for white, and the transpositions we have to live with. Make sure to check out the Tarrasch and semi-Tarrasch chapter within the c4 e6 section. Yeah, you will get those setups quite frequently, also from c4 c5.